thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. This is Up for a Chat with Cindy O'Mara, Karen Smith, and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Karen Smith.
I'm Kim Morrison.
And I'm Cindy O'Mara.
Oh my goodness, have we found a guest for you this week? Now, this guy, his name is Gary Woolens. So I just want all of you listeners to strap yourselves in because you're in for the ride of your life. We have been talking a lot about health, well-being, light, EMFs. You know, there's been a lot of conversation about that on Up for a Chat here, and it makes a lot of sense why we would have Gary on the show with us. Gary is, let's just say he's a bit of an expert through his own personal experience, and it's interesting. The term is PEMF, so pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. And I'm not going to take too much away from you, Gary, but I'm really keen for you to be able to share with our audience today on the podcast how a boating accident can create something so incredibly life-changing, not only for yourself, but for the rest of the planet. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here.
So, Gary, why don't you start off by telling us about this journey that you've been on. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you are, and how you've come to do the work that you're doing.
Okay. Well, I started out at university. I was a pre-med major. After 2-3 years, I saw the I just didn't believe that treating symptoms was the approach, so I diverted to psychology because it was all about helping people. That's what I wanted to do. So,
Larry, I just want to know what doing pre-med. You must have known what you were going into, and then you realised that it wasn't what you wanted. What gave you that realization? Was there something that happened in your life?
Well, I met a lady that was into herbs and nutrition, and it just seemed like that was a much better approach, and there's no side effects. And also, I was in my early 20s, and looking back. Let's say I didn't have all the wherewithal in the world back then, so I was on a learning curve, still am, and so I got a degree in psychology. You can't do anything with a Bachelor of Science with psychology except get a master's. So I went to graduate school, but I was due to this lady, I became very interested in sort of the parapsychology. So I thought I would get a degree in parapsychology, and there was only one place in the world, which is San Francisco, back in the 70s. But then I met a man who became a spiritual teacher for 30 years, and found out that to be somebody, I didn't need to have a degree, and that's sort of what got ingrained within me, or I accepted. In my life, so I went into the solar business and kind of got out of the alternative field for a while. Although I was still involved and still eating vitamins and watching nutrition and food combinations and simple things like that back then. But long story short, in 1989, I was in the States, and I was cruising down a river in a boat. We hit a submerged concrete bridge piling, and the boat stopped, and I didn't, and it sheared my sacrum in two. That's the big triangular bone in the hip. Completely sheared it in two and moved it off completely off out of alignment. And I ended up on crutches for 7 months. Long story short, again, 26 years later, I was struggling with pain and stiffness. I tried all the alternatives of chiros, acupuncture, neuroemotive, neurointegrative, you name it, different practitioners doing the same thing, and nothing stuck. And I just happened, after I'd gone to a chiropractor and got charged $240, and nothing happened, I got on Google and happened to find out about PEMF, and I like the science behind it. There's lots of science studies, and watched lots of testimonials on YouTube. And back then, 2.5 years ago, living in Melbourne, I couldn't find anybody doing it, so I had to buy a system. And I researched for 2.5 months, and I got a system. And in 4 days, treating myself twice a day, half an hour total, it disappeared. 2.5 years ago, still gone. And we can talk about the other benefits. I sleep about 5 hours now, have a higher, even energy. It's the evenness. It doesn't dip up and down. So that's how I got into it. And then I started giving other people treatments, and slowly just transitioned into this about 2 years ago full time. And I've been doing treatments. I now rent systems, and a certain percentage of people will buy the systems based on the results they get that they haven't found anywhere else.
So, Gary, just before we get into the actual mechanisms and the science and behind the PMF, you made a comment, to be somebody, I didn't need a degree. I was really interested in that because for myself in particular, I've always felt, or had felt in the past, that I've got diplomas and I'm interested in many different topics. And of course, I feel via osmosis, being around Cindy and Karen, I get to absorb their incredible knowledge. But tell me how that felt to you to let that belief go after being in university for quite some time.
Well, it's an acceptance thing. It's personal development, I guess. So it's gave me more a sense of freedom, and it allowed me to work on more fundamental things as opposed to internal fundamental aspects of myself, as opposed to sort of the outward getting a piece of paper, which is very outward if you look at it in one sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I'm sure there's many people that have got degrees that would also have that epiphany after having their degrees as well. Can you tell me,
Right.
going into your spiritual development, do you think that's what connected you to going outside the realm of normal orthodox treatment for such ongoing chronic pain? Do you think that's what allowed your mind to be open to even seeing PMMA?
Well, just going way back at university, I could just see that. Well, if the fuel injectors keep getting clogged up, and you just go to mechanic and get them cleaned out, shouldn't you be looking at why are they getting clogged up? And but it was a long, long journey. I'm 68 years old, so it's a long journey. And part of that, to answer your question, was the spiritual development. It was the inner is acceptance, love of self, which I think is we're all our own worst enemies, can be at times. So we all have things to learn. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you so much. And now I'm really curious to hear more about this PEMF, as we all are. Can you just give us how does someone with such chronic pain use something for half an hour twice a day and within 4 days have this majestic and magical reaction? I'm curious.
All right. Well, first, I just want to say that I'm an exception to the rule. It takes the body especially with chronic diseases, a while to get where it ends up when you start a treatment. So it's going to take a while for the body to heal. Basically, PEMF stands for post electromagnetic. So electromagnetic is the key word. Electromagnetic fields. So there are two fundamental energies that pervade us. That's gravity and electromagnetic energy. It's all around us. There's two other on the subatomic, but I don't want to get into quantum physics. So it's a fundamental energy, and we are electromagnetic beings. We have all the body has a voltage. All cells are like a battery. They have a measurable voltage. They've known this since the 1910s. Tesla alluded to it even earlier. And all chronic disease, any injury, imbalance, inflammation, pain has an associated low voltage. Scientific fact, measurable since the 1910s, 1920s. A Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Otto Warburg, he got a Nobel Prize in 1934, but in the 1920s, when he was doing his studies and his research on cancer, he found two things with cancer. Cancer does not like an oxygen-rich environment, like it's an anaerobic, lack of oxygen, and it has ultra low voltage. So, but in the 1900s, 1910, 11, Dale Carnegie, that's my American accent, and J.D. Rockefeller invested in the pharmaceutical industry, and they got this Flexner to do this Flexner report, which basically that had political power, and he had an agenda. And he said that the only true medicine is surgical, pharmaceutical, homeopathy, naturopathy, any electromagnetic or electrical needs to be thrown out. And over a 20-year period, it was taken out of all the medical schools. And by 1934, it was you would lose your license in the U.S. if you did anything with electricity or electromagnetic waves. And they also took women out of medical school too, as a result of the Flexner report.
I didn't realize it was Carnegie that was. I knew about the Flexner report and Rockefeller, but I didn't realize it was Dale Carnegie.
Yeah. They invested in the pharmaceutical companies, and there was too much competition. You got to get herbs and nutrition out of the market. You can't put a patent on it.
That's incredible, isn't it? That happened in 1910, and now you have a look at where we are at the moment, and what's happening in Australia at the moment with regards to them, stopping even private health insurance to people like Buteco and naturopaths, and they haven't done chiropractors, thank goodness, but they're starting to take that away, all those natural choices, and then there's the push. There's a real push for that medicine. It's almost, I didn't realize that Dale Carnegie, and the reason I'm blown away by it is that my dad used to listen to Dale Carnegie tapes back in the 60s and the 70s in the car that we lived in when we were driving to not lived in, but, drove in when we were driving to Melbourne. He'd put one of those on. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different person.
Now there was the Carnegie. Was it sales or
Yeah.
It was sort of a personal development.
Personal development.
He was the guy who wrote that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's right.
Yes, but he was sales and personal development. My dad used to listen to him as well, and I think my dad even went to some of his courses here.
So was he the same Dale Carnegie?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Dale Carnegie, all of that lot were, the top of their field.
Yeah, I remember listening to a tape series. I think it was like How to Stop Worrying and How to Start Living or something like that. I just remember it so well. You must have the same father as me.
I think I did.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I remember reading about the Flexner Report and realizing that, that's where it all began, and that's where herbs and, like you said, energy and chiropractic, even in the early part, people put in jail for practicing medicine without a license as chiropractors. And they, even in the 80s, I believe they created a report to ruin chiropractic in the US. And people were still going to jail in the 80s about it. So, it's, and now we struggle to get all these wonderful treatments or treatment is, treating the mind, but all these wonderful ways of getting the body energetically well again. People just poo-poo it, don't they?
Yes, they do. So, but it is opening up now. Scientific American 2015-16 makes reference to a new branch of medicine, bioelectronics, and the Northwestern University is starting to do lots of research. So this is PhDs, not medical doctors, they're really looking into it. And PEMF, pulse electromagnetic field therapy, has been used in hospitals in Germany and Eastern Europe for 20 years. The International Space Station uses it, the Russians and the Americans, but that was all kept quiet.
Oh.
NASA would keep it quiet because they don't want to get the pharmaceutical industry in the U.S. against them. It'd hurt their funding because the pharmaceutical lobby is far more one of the most powerful lobbies in the world in the U.S. So it's getting a foothold, definitely. And there have been on PubMed where all the clinical studies. Well, one of the websites, the National Institutes of Health in the U.S., that publish all pharmaceutical studies. Every study that's sort of current, they're presently right now there's over 1,800 on pulsed electromagnetic fields. So some are lukewarm. Whoever's doing the study, can always be agendas. Most of the time there are. But it's getting a real foothold, and especially in Germany, where it sort of all started or came out. Let's say like I said, the Russians and NASA were looking into it and use it in the International Space Station, as I said.
Yeah. Interesting what you said about science, Gary. I was listening to Yuval Noah Harari today, and he basically was saying that all science is about profit, not about truth. But he doesn't say that about individual scientists. He says individual scientists are about the truth, but then corporations are about, or science is about profit, not truth. And, he's a fairly sought-after speaker and sought-after author, his book Sapiens. And for him to say that, I went, wow, he's really pushing it. But that was what he felt. So when I see independent scientists, so I'm watching an independent scientist at the moment being raked over the coals because he's discovered something about aluminium. But before that, for 35 years before that, he just had his head down under a microscope in, biological systems, figuring out what happens with aluminium when it's either ingested, injected, breathed in, etc. So, and, he is about if it's not scientific, then it's not the truth. So it's interesting what is happening out there with science, and I agree with you with regarding, that agenda. Now, we had Jack Cruz on earlier this year in 2019, and Jack talked about non-native EMFs versus native EMFs. Could you explain to us how PEMF is a native as opposed to a non-native?
All right. Well, let's just talk about a native. So I didn't hear the podcast, but there are two Earth-based, let's just call them frequencies out there. That there's one from everyone's familiar with the North Pole, and that has a magnetic a frequency that's how many times a second electromagnetic wave repeats. It has a frequency of around 12. It's 11.7. Let's just call it 12 cycles a second. Mm-hmm. And then there is what's called the Schumann resonance, and that is electromagnetic waves generated from lightning strikes. There are around 7-8 million lightning strikes around the world every day. That's it's around figures to around 80 a second. So every time a lightning bolt is created, there's a very strong electromagnetic field that goes parallel to it, just goes out perpendicular to it, and that bounces around the ionosphere, and we're all feeling that. It's very low intensity, and that's called the Schumann resonance. It's at 7.83 hertz. It varies, and that's called the heartbeat of the Earth. As human beings, our brain operates from 1 to 30 hertz, and the Schumann resonance goes up and down between that. Reiki healers, which is measurable now, emanate 7 to 8 cycles a second, and now they can sense. They have this very sensitive magnetometer. It's called a squid magnetometer. It can sense frequencies in the body, and they vary depending. The heart has the strongest frequency. Electromagnetic field, which goes out to around 3 to 5 meters. So you can see that and brave waves 1 to 30. So you can see that the human body is aligned to these natural Earth-based frequencies, and then you get a mobile phone. 4G is 8 billion cycles a second. Wi-Fi 2.4, 2.8, 5.4 billion cycles a second. So I think that's what he was talking about. So there's the native, which are very low, and then there's the super high frequencies and intensities that we're bombarded with.
Yeah, it's quite incredible. So the PEMF is bringing it brings your body back to a native EMF. Is that right? Could you explain?
Yeah, that's right. So let me explain how it works. So if you have a copper wire and you coil it up into a coil, and it's got 3, 5, 10 turns, and you put electricity through that, that generates an electromagnetic field. It's really an electromagnet, all right? And what we're doing with that field is that we're turning it on and off. And which is called time varying the field, and that's just how a generator generates electricity in a current. So in essence, we are generating small currents in the body. So people lay on a mat to do the full body, and there are 6 to 8 coils, big coils of copper, and the current goes on and off at a certain cycle a second, and we use natural cycles. We use 0.5 to 15 hertz. So we are just generating natural earth-based frequencies. The thing about electromagnetic waves is they go completely through the body, so they permeate every cell in the body. So we can thoroughly reach every cell in the body, and we can generate a what we call a microcurrent in the cells. And all cells, it's this metaphor, all cells are just like a battery. They have a voltage, they have a certain power, and as I said earlier, the chronic disease is associated with the low voltage, inflammation, pain, low voltage, the voltage drops. You break your arm and immediately the voltage drops. That's the first, on the fundamental quantum level, signaling device for the body to send more energy because the voltage has dropped, and we got to send essentially electrons to that area and start the healing process, which also will start the biochemical. All biochemical reactions are based on positive and negative attractions, electromagnetic. So we are fundamentally electromagnetic, and that's what I like about PEMF. It is, I don't know anything more fundamentally approaching health on this fundamental or quantum level, as I call it, to give energy to the body. And there's a book called Healing is Voltage by Dr. Gary Tennant. And he was an ophthalmologist that got his brain got infected with encephalitis, and Western medicine, go off and get your affairs sorted. And he didn't want to do that, and he found out that his brain was should have been 25 millivolts, and it was 4. So he's written a book, Healing is Voltage. He says there are 3 things the body needs to heal. It needs the energy, electrons, which is what the post-electromagnetic field therapy gives. You need the right building blocks, which he's talking about nutrition. You got to give it the right elements. And then you need to reduce or eliminate the source of the imbalance, which can be physical, emotional, or mental. The last 2 are a bit tricky. So that's, and just one last thing. I go to lots of expos on healing, mind, body, spirit, wellness, and I see everything that's out there and walk around all the exhibitors and all the products and services, and I don't know anything that fundamentally approaches true energy healing than post-electromagnetic field therapy, because it's just giving you electrons, on a quantum level, energy, pure energy, and that's what the body is lacking if it has an imbalance.
So let's. Oh, sorry. I was just going to ask about the electrons. The electrons are really important for the electron transport chain, which happens in the mitochondria that gives us energy. Would you like to talk on that and the importance of, if we don't have them, then we have mitochondrial disease?
Right. Well, first and foremost, the most important element in the electron transport chain is oxygen, and that's depends on the researcher, 80-90%. That's the fundamental source, and PEMF increases oxygenation. It if you look at a slide of red blood cells, most people they're stuck together. It's called the rouleau effect or sticky blood. And you do take a blood sample before treatment, the blood cells are stuck together. You take a sample 10 minutes later, and they're all separated. And red blood cells cannot pass through the microcapillaries of the body, which is 80%. They can only pass through single file. So if they're stuck together, you're not getting red blood cells. So you're not getting oxygen, ATP. The cells, the mitochondria need 80 to 90% of the energy comes from the oxygen. So that is one of the strong suits of PEMF is just the increase of oxygen due to what it does to the red blood cells. And the other thing is that it alkalizes the body. And pH is a measure of voltage. To measure pH, you can use a voltage meter. So we are increasing the voltage. We are alkalizing the body, and even Western medicine agrees. Knows that cancer cells cannot grow in an oxygen-rich and alkaline body. Most bacteria grows in an anaerobic lack of oxygen environment. So that's another thing. In regards to the electron chain transport, fundamentally, I feel that the PEMF, it's the oxygenation that is really helping with the increase of ATP production. It's clinical fact that PEMF increases ATP production, oxygenation, it increases endorphin production, which helps with the pain. Because I've already mentioned that it alkalizes the body. All inflammation is an acidic environment. I mean, that's one of the fundamental chemical or chemistry facts of pain. So and I've had some great effects, or great stories from pain reduction, and some immediate, some takes time, and it just all depends on what the issue is, age, lifestyle, all of that, which is hard to gauge.
It's interesting what is happening with the mitochondria and the understanding of the mitochondria, and the fact that your mitochondria will, when it takes in oxygen, it has the electrons and it has food, the right food, and it can basically produce the carbon dioxide that feeds the plants, and it produces something called low deuterium water, which is another thing that we learned from Jack Kruse when we had him on, as well as Jason Borden-Smith. So if your mitochondria are working well, you're making low deuterium water, you're making the carbon dioxide, and you're making the ATP that's so important for, the carbon dioxide is breathed out, but the low deuterium water and the ATP are used for body functions. I find it also interesting that in this day and age that medicine uses energy for diagnosis but not for treatment.
That's right.
They'll often use energy for that, but they're not using it for treatment, which seems kind of daft, doesn't it?
Well, you can't put a patent on electromagnetic fields and frequencies. You can't do that, and it's sort of a non-consumable. They like consumables.
Yeah, true. Very true. Now, I disturbed somebody before asking a question. Did that question get answered?
It was only me, Cindy. Don't you worry, precious heart. No, I think that I'm still confused just about one aspect. And it is because we've had, such ferocious conversations with Jack Kruse and not so ferocious with Jason. about EMFs and technology. And the question that I'm asking is the native EMFs, you know, say we go out into the forest or we hug a tree, or we surround ourselves with fluffy puppies, just saying, would the electromagnetic fields that we get, because we definitely feel enhanced and better when we're in those environments, is that the same sort of impact from an electromagnetic perspective on the body that your equipment has?
Yeah, it's exactly the same, except this is a turbocharged version. When you go out into nature and you're barefoot, which we don't do, we're insulated, rubber-soled shoes, concrete blocks, steel blocks, the field, but it's the electrons. So you go out and you walk on the beach, and you're sick. You have pain, you have a low voltage, you're lacking electrons, okay? The Earth is full of them. And because there's a differential, there's a lessening, there's a vacuum, if you will, the electrons will just go right up into your body. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, okay. And that's why you feel invigorated, because you have more energy, you know. When you go out into nature, because you've received more energy, you've received more electrons. The thing that happens is that, and this is the physics, electrons love to travel on the surface of the conductor. So they will scurry up your body, but they'll have a tendency to go on the surface of your body. It's called the skin effect. And because a copper wire, if you look at a cross section of a copper wire that's carrying electrical current, 80 to 90% of the electrons, which is the current, are on the outside. Nothing goes through the center of the copper, and that's just physics of electron transport. So there's a tendency with earthing or grounding, which is what we're talking about, for that to happen, and they don't go deep into the body. But the other thing is that it's more of a trickle effect, or I compare it to water dripping. Just say you got a shower, and it's just one drop on the body. And those drops are electrons, whereas with the PEMF mats, we are generating, far more electrons, and through this electromagnetic wave that gets all the body thoroughly and just washes the body. So it's like a huge shower, just immediately drenching the body all the time, and you're getting far more drops, if that makes sense. So the metaphor is the drops of water are the electrons, if you will. So it's like a turbocharged version of it, and it is thorough, because magnetic waves get every cell, every joint, every cell in the body, the bone marrow.
And so when I look at it, does. Yes, it does. And when I look at, a huge big tower of mobile receivers or whatever it is that's across from me, that's bombarding my place where I live all the time, if I was to add this therapy to that, would that not just overstimulate or oversaturate, given that we live in such a dominated environment with EMFs?
Well, let's look at it as synchronicity or harmonies. So the human body has a low frequency, and let's just call it octave, okay? And PEMF, the system that I use, is just going to to duplicate that, and like a tune, you take one tuning fork and you tap it and you put it next to another one. The other tuning fork is going to start vibrating at that frequency. So it's a way to retune, realign the body to its natural earth-based frequencies. Okay, so it's just a way to retune the body, and using the harmony metaphor, and you got the towers out there, and the volume is up. If it was sound, it would be like the volume is up, and it's going to break your eardrums, and it's a terrible. What's the word? Disharmonic, a dissonant sound, and
Yes.
you're getting that all the time.
Yes.
And you normally, your ears, you would just, protect yourself, but you can't do anything about the electromagnetic waves. You can't protect yourself. Did that make sense? What?
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a way to realign, retune the cells. I mean, it doesn't last forever, and that's a good point. So when you have a session or a treatment, you're essentially charging your cells. It's back to the low voltage battery, and you'll hold that charge 4 to 6 hours. Now the effect can last a lot longer. I'm just talking about the charge. You will get your electron count will go down. The battery will lose a bunch of its charge. The cells.
Gary, I used to, many years ago, got involved in a business that sold what they called negative ion mats, and we used to sleep on them, and they talked about raising the frequency in the body and the healing. Is this completely different, or is it something?
You're talking about the mattress pads with the magnets in them?
Yeah. Is it along the same line, or is it?
Well, there's a big difference. So magnets have a continuous field, okay? It's on all the time. That electromagnetic field is on all the time. And unless you time vary it, you either move the magnet, that's varying it over time and distance, that's time varying, or you turn it off and on, it's called Faraday's law of induction. You have to have a time varying magnetic field. So the only way you could generate microcurrents is if you were rolling across the mattress pad, and that'd be a very inefficient way. And again, the pulse electromagnetic field pads, they're really just charging pads. It's turbocharged. It's just delivering, literally billions or trillions, probably even higher electrons that go all the way through the body. So yeah, that's a very good point about the magnet. So unless that you're moving the magnet, or you can turn the field on and off, it won't generate microcurrents. And like a generator generates current in household power, it's Faraday's law of induction, time varying. You got to move the magnets or change the field, turn it on and off.
It's quite interesting. So how exactly does your PEMF actually work? What do you rub it on you? Do you wave it over you? Do you bathe in it? Do you?
No, there's.
I can just see you. How do I bathe in it?
And you don't shower in it either.
Come on, give it to me.
All right. So the applicators, or there's a full body mat, it's called. So it's about 800 mils wide in the length of the body, and there are 6 large coils in it. And so you just lay down on that and turn the controller on and set it for usually 10 minutes at a certain intensity, and that does the whole body. So our approach to therapy is you do the whole body, you do the whole system. Many times where a problem manifests, which can be a low voltage area, there's also other low voltage areas, other organs connected. There's a domino effect going on somewhere in the body. So we do the whole body for 10 minutes, and then we have smaller applicators. It's the size of 3/4 the size of a pillow, and that has 2 coils in it. And we lay that on different areas of the body, knees, the feet, the hips, lower back, the gut. I do lots of immune system on the gut, back of the head. And that's a smaller applicator with a different waveform with this system. And then we have a very small, this is cigar shaped, about the size of a cigar, and that's a very focused magnetic field generator. They're all magnetic field generators that go on and off, on and off. Did that answer your?
Yeah. I'm wondering what you could do with that cigar-shaped thing too. Just kind of where else we could stick that thing. But in all honesty, so is it expensive? Is it something that us everyday people can use, or is it that we have to go to somebody for this kind of treatment? Because I can imagine that many of our listeners sitting there with some of these conditions you're talking about, particularly around the gut, knees, joints, feet, headaches, migraines, autoimmune disease, cancers. Like, how would we get hold of this, and how do we bring this into our world?
Well, I would recommend getting on Google. We have started to get a few practitioners around. As I said earlier, 2.5 years ago, I couldn't find anybody, at least on Google. There were a few people, but they weren't Googleized yet or didn't have website. So you can, yes, they're expensive. Well, you get what you pay for. You can get a little battery operated with a small hoop earrings, if you will, a generator, and you can pay up to 60,000 Australian for a big clinical system. The systems that I use, so I do treatments and I do rentals, and I do rentals because people want to know, will it work for me? They can do all their research. They can go on YouTube and see all the testimonials, find, whoever that has a similar order, will it work for me? So I do rentals, and I charge $70 for an hour treatment. I rent systems, and this is the no-brainer, for $150 a week, and you can treat yourself twice a day, 3 times a day. And in 2 weeks, most people will know if this is something that's for them. And my systems that I sell, which are Swiss made, one of the spin-offs of the founder, Dr. Fisher, who started doing whole body PEMF systems in Germany in the 80s. They sell for 6,000 to 10,000 Australian dollars for everything. You can buy $2,000 systems. I bought $2,000 systems, and they didn't do the job on numerous occasions. So that's the state. But you can pay $500 up to $60,000 for PEMF systems. $60,000. That's very, very clinical, and it's a high intensity system. My approach to PEMF, there's 2 schools out there. There is the homeopathic, naturopathic, earth-based PEMF systems, which is what I deal with, Swiss Bionic Solutions. And then there's the allopathic, big hammer, more is better. Well, this just increased the intensity 5 to 60,000 times, and it will knock out pain. I think it is very disruptive. And Dr. James Oshman, who wrote Energy Medicine, he's a PhD cellular biologist. He's on YouTube. He would be a very interesting man to interview. Dr. James Oshman, very nice man, Bruce Lipton type of guy. Both cellular biologists. Now he's called himself a biophysicist, and and he's wanting to get, he thinks, and I do too, that Western medicine doesn't incorporate quantum mechanics. I mean, the fundamental energies. There's two basic energies: gravity and electromagnetic. We're electromagnetic beings. It's just the source energy of everything. And what Dr. Werner Heisenberg, he's a Nobel Prize winner. Electromagnetic energy is the fundamental energy upon which all living organisms depend. And Dr. James Oshman said, in all living things, energy is more fundamental than chemistry. Electromagnetic energy is.
So Gary, if someone was unwell, I mean, we know that money becomes it's not that it's not an issue, but it becomes the priority is to get help for our loved ones if they're diagnosed with serious illness. And I dare say many families have spent more than $60,000 trying to save loved ones or support loved ones. So some people may be listening to this thinking $60,000 is very cheap if you're putting life and health onto that. If you then went ahead and purchased the system or rented the system and did it for, like you said, for 2 weeks, is that when you then go back in understanding the 4 levels of healing, I think that you mentioned around energy, the quantum levels of electrons with your regular treatments with the PEMFs, the building blocks, I think you mentioned nutrition, and then finding out what caused the problem in the first place. Is that something you would integrate every month, every couple of months? Is it something that you just see how it feels for yourself, as well as doing those other 4 things you said were important for healing? How would you advise somebody who's sitting here listening to this going, wow, I'm really keen. How can I go about that? And where are you based? And how do we get you?
All right. Well, my approach is, I'm always looking for complementary practitioners to help on the nutritional side, and I have some people that deal with specifically cancer patients. That the biggest fear of cancer patients is they go through Peter Mac. Through the therapy, your markers, you're in remission, your markers have dropped, and what the biggest fear, it's going to come back. So I work with cancer care here. I'm in Melbourne, but I rent systems all over the country. I just send them, and they're easy to use. So I work with them, and they approach on diet, nutrition, but also basic chemistry, alkalize the body, get rid of all the chemicals that come into your house, and can't eat this, throw this away, don't use this chemical, get rid of it. So, PEMF, it's definitely worth a look. Do your research, Google, there's lots of studies. Will it work for, that's the biggest question. I just got a question on yesterday, heterotropic ossification, bones growing where the bone growth on cartilage where it shouldn't be and stuff. I just got another one today. So
I just heard about that one too. I heard a lady I spoke to last week had that too.
Yeah, well, they've rented a system, and that's all I can say. I don't make promises. I say, and I can have 2 people with the same problem, let's say lower back, which is, to me, lower back problems are chronic low back problems. How long is it going to take with the PEMF? But I can have 2 people, and I can have one that's high stress, and that stress, that imbalance is 24/7. And sometimes that negative current, that negative energy, the PMF won't give the positive, just can't overcome it. So that's why it's worth a go. I have practitioners in quite a few in Sydney now, and in Brisbane. Adelaide's going great guns. Had a lady with chronic fatigue for 30 years, kind of a zombie. Was an artist. He completely gave up. And she came for a treatment with Linda, who does treatments in Adelaide, rented a system. 2 weeks later, because of the results, bought it, and that was a big buy. That was $9,000. And 6 weeks later, gone. She's a practitioner now, and she has a story to tell, and she just wants to help other people. And there are, that's not a rarity. I've had two people.
Yeah, I was thinking, you always find this, where somebody says, "Oh, it worked for me," and another one says it doesn't. But I also like to look at, well, what have they done up to that point? Like you, Gary, had tried different things and looked at different things, and were working your way through it. And it's almost like it's a stacking of health habits that you do, from food to getting rid of chemicals to whatever it is that you're using. And then PMF must be like the icing on the cake, if not the beginning of their journey. So it could come anywhere in that stacking. As long as so many people want a magic pill, don't they? As opposed to,
yes,
there are lots of things that I need to do in order to be well. I can't just do PMF and go out and eat McDonald's and live a high-stress life and don't sleep and whatever. So to me, when somebody does a really good job, like does really well with PEMF, and another one doesn't, I would be asking the question, what have you done coming up to this, and what else do you need to do in order to make sure that this benefits you in a way that you want help with? So, and like, you've done parapsychology, and I was just kept thinking with the parapsychology as well, when you said, what was it, to reduce, I've written so many notes here, I've got to figure out where you said it, but it was something about those three things, electrons, building blocks, and reduce and eliminate the imbalances. Yeah. So what are the imbalances? So I often wonder, is that why some people it works for and some people it doesn't? Because
I agree exactly with what you said. And what lifestyle are they going home and are they still hammering themselves? Are they drinking 2 bottles of wine, or are they are they in a very negative relationship? Yeah. There's so many of those factors besides just the nutritional and I agree, you have to take a holistic approach, and that's why I'm very familiar with Jack. I love listening to the character and Dr. Stephen Gundry, Plant Paradox and Longevity Paradox, and Pearl Mutter, who's a neurologist turned nutritionalist. So I try to keep up, but all you ladies know that's very difficult.
Yeah. Hey, Gary, I have one more question, because we're coming towards the end of our podcast. But as you're talking about this, the PEMF, so my sister passed away in 2007 of cancer, and she had these meter in diameter copper coils, 2 of them, that she hung from her roof and sat between. And the more you're talking about the PEMFs, the more I'm wondering, I don't know where she got them from. I have no idea what they were. They just hang from her roof in her front hall. I'm just wondering if that's what she was using. I've still got them. They're sitting in storage, and I wonder, is that what she was doing? Does that make any sense to you? Were they like that in the old days?
No, they would not be generating electrons, or electromagnetic waves. If I'm very science based,
Yeah.
and as Bruce Lipton said, 30% of all treatments that can be placebo. So if you believe,
Well, I don't even know what it was. That's why I was asking you. I'm thinking,
yeah.
You said copper coils. I just had this vision of my sister between these copper coils. She did not do lifestyles very well. Like she liked to, she didn't health stack at all.
Yeah, but unless you're pulsing an electric current through the coils, it's not going to make an electromagnetic field.
Oh, it was attached to electricity.
Oh, it was? Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to take a photo and send it to you, Gary.
Okay, yeah. All right. It might be the old amp coil, or something. So
yeah.
I try to keep up with everything that's happening in the market. So I do want to plug. Can I plug my website?
Yes, please do.
It's pretty easy. It's PEMF.com.au.
I'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah, okay. All right.
So everybody's got it, and they can go and do some more research and have a look at it. And the fact that you're science-based, people seem to be wanting, that backing now because especially, evidence-based seems to be the new buzzword. So they will love your website and all your information. And that video that I watched is that on your website?
Yes.
Good.
Yep.
Wonderful. That's a good 10-minute video to show how PEMF works and how it works on the body. And I thought it was absolutely brilliant. So thank you for sending that through to us.
Yeah, the 10 ways that PEMF helps the body heal. That's the name of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think this has been a very fascinating conversation. And I think that it's possible that there are even more questions that need to be answered. I'm going to be really, really interested, Gary, to see the feedback that we get on today's podcast show from our listeners and the questions that they might have. So I'm sure that we will filter more questions through to you over time.
All right. I forgot to one science thing. In the U.S., PEMF is FDA approved for bone fractures that won't heal, so it's very good at generating bones. By the way, it's clinically proven to increase bone density, but it's FDA approved for depression, unresponsive to pharmaceuticals, one form of brain cancer, only because they've only tested one form, and incontinence.
Wow, that's incredible.
Basically, it gives the body on a quantum level the energy it needs to heal. You got to do the other things that we said about nutrition and eliminate the source of the imbalance, as I say. But sometimes it's enough. It gives you at least more energy and can take you across a threshold sometimes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Gary.
Yes, thank you, Gary.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for allowing me to, just get the word out. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
No, and Gary, just finishing, girls. I just want to snip in and just double check and double make sure that this could also be used, Gary, in all preventative measures. I just wanted to say it again. This is also a preventative tool, I would imagine. Is that correct?
That's right. And some manufacturers, not Swiss Bionic, call it a longevity device.
I can imagine.
That makes a lot of sense.
So I will be doing it 10 minutes twice a day, till I go to the other side.
Let's hope that's not for a long time yet. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
For all of our listeners, we hope you guys have been charged by today's amazing show. Don't you love that? Head on over to our Facebook page at allthews.facebook.com/up for a chat. And please, guys, post your comments and your questions about today's show, because I think that this is an ongoing conversation. I don't think that we're done here. You can also head on over to allthews.thewellnesscouch.com/up for a chat. And most importantly, of course, when you go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating and go ahead and tell everybody that you know to jump online and listen to Up for a Chat, because there's always something interesting happening, and we're living in a day and age where it's not just about information, it's also about responsibility and action. And always remember, you heard it here first. So make sure that you tune in next week on Up for a Chat, where you get to become part of the ripple effect that's charging the world. We're going to see you on the ride. Bye for now, everyone.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.